Hello, this is R Rats with Team 4545 League, analyzing the game between Mitas and Helio Araujo. This was played in Team Event 53 in the third round. It's in the under 1800 section. Black's team is ahead 2 games to none, so White needs a win here. Let's have a look. So it's interesting I think it's always interesting to see a game where one side needs to win, and because oftentimes we can forgive certain moves that they play because it was in the best interest of the team to avoid going into a draw, where Black, of course, should be quite happy with a draw. Ratings are about close, so it's a fair fight. And here we have the Paulson. We've seen that a few times recently. I know I've made a few videos with that. And Queen C7. So White kind of plays slow, and A3 may be premature here, but it spends a tempo instead of developing. Sometimes just let Black do his thing and push the pawn. Okay, if you're playing for a win, sometimes that's the best way to do it, is just get rapid development, because we all know that if your pieces are out, you can do more things than when they're not. Okay, so anyway, I'm not criticizing A3. I'm just saying White needs an active strategy here, and being one tempo down in development takes those opportunities away. But let's just play fantasy chess here for a second. And I'm not saying this is book or theory, but let's assume since White played A3, he didn't want the pawn going to B4, or maybe the bishop going to B4. So let's just put it there, okay? Let's just put it there and get it out of the way. Now it's there. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, in this position, White has castled. He has 3 minor pieces developed. Black has 1 piece developed, and that's his queen. Everything else he owns is on the back rank. Okay, so what's Black going to do? He's got to justify that he has given up these tempos for a reason. So let's just do kind of what Black does in the game and play bishop b7. That attacks a pawn. So we're going to do it simply because that's what Black did in the first place, or in the real game. Now, how does White defend that pawn? Okay, in the game he played bishop f3. So let's go ahead and do it. Okay, let's just go ahead and do it. And then knight f6. I think that's what happened in the game. So now the pawn's under attack again. Well, we've got to deal with that. Don't remember exactly if he played rook e1 or queen e2, but let's just develop the queen, just for the sake of argument. Let Black catch up in development. Okay, now bishop e7. Now Black's getting his pieces out and he's getting ready to castle, right? Okay, that's fine. It's White's move. What's he going to do? Now, I don't say White has a forced win, but like I say, he's getting his pieces out, so let's just play bishop g5. And we're going to go ahead and castle for Black. Now, White can complete his development if he moves his queen rook. Okay, he can complete it. Put it on c1, put it on d1, wherever you want to put it. If you move it, development's done. The only exception in some cases is, do you consider the rook on f1 developed or not? Well, it did develop in a way. It's just going to probably play to e1 or d1 later. So moving the rook on a1 doesn't necessarily mean it's a good move, but at least White's got his pieces out, and he has some potential here. What about e5? I'm not saying it's the best move, but let's just try it. What about e5? Maybe he could have played it last move. Okay, what's Black gonna do? His knight's under attack. He's got to deal with that. It fixes a backward pawn on the open file, but Black should be okay about that. I'm just saying, now White has some activity. And I'm not trying to prove White has a win, because this early in the game, White doesn't have a win. White's got to find some kind of an active plan, and he'll do that by developing his pieces. And that's the whole point of this exercise, is that if you develop, you got a chance. And when White played a3, he was just more or less playing it safe, and as a result, he didn't get ahead in development, and he didn't get an active game going. So I don't want to spend any more time on this position. It could be that Black is still equal here, but since White has his development done, White's got a good chance to to try to play for a win. Okay, so let's go back and we'll look at a3. And like I say, the game continues along the same path, except that white has spent his tempo on a3, and black goes about and does knight c6, and we've seen a lot of this before in the other position, except I never had black playing knight c6. I was keeping pressure on e4. Okay, so rook e1. And now this is interesting. Black finds a good square for his knight. Now, what should white do? Well, he's almost committed to giving up the bishop pair here, because really, where's the bishop go? And if you move it, you might drop e4. So one could argue that black has got equality here. He's certainly getting his pieces out. He hasn't castled yet. Okay, so white's playing for a pin, but black can deal with that. You know, we got to get these two guys developed. They're not developed yet. That's one of the reasons why I might have preferred, in some positions, queen e2 rather than rook e1, but maybe it wasn't possible because d4 was hanging. But he could always have taken exchange on c6, and the game that between Fischer and, was it Brian Wood? No, it wasn't Brian Wood here. It was, well, I have it, but I'm not going to worry about it. I just posted it. He got a very interesting attack by taking on c6. Okay, so now black's almost... Actually, black's ahead in development now. He's got everything out except for his queen-rook, and white's still sitting there with his queen-rook sitting at home, and his queen. Okay. So why did that happen? Partly because white spent some time moving pieces twice. Black developed, and white moved his king-bishop again. And then the queen-bishop went to g5 and then dropped back 2 moves to get to g3. And black just plays it solid. And now white's just about caught up. And this is an interesting move. It leaves white with the less weaker bishop, but one thing about this position, even though white now has a queenside pawn majority and all black's pawns are on the king side, black has full compensation for that. The white queenside pawn majority is basically neutralized, and I have some illustrative games one day I'll share that show more and explain this, but you can see the basics. Just imagine an endgame with kings and pawns. Okay, if white goes for to get a pass pawn, it's going to be an isolated pawn on c4. Now white can get it, but it's not going to be a very potent pass pawn. Ideally, you'd like to get an isolated pass pawn, but you can't. But if the pawn were still back on a2 instead of on a3, the position takes on certain advantages for white. He can play the pawn ending a little better. And it's a long story and involved and beyond the scope of this short video. But that's just an example of why the basics of why this 3-on-2 majority isn't as potent for white unless the pawn were on a2. So in the meantime, the black pawns on e6 and e5 are rock solid, and they control critical squares and keep white out of squares he needs to get to if he's going to generate anything. And what's white going to generate? White's playing for a win, or for the team to win. And essentially, black's kingside is so solid that there's nothing white can do to generate any kind of an attack there. That leaves the queenside. He's going to have to play on the queenside, and the one trump he has is the fact that he has the ability to make a pass pawn. So that's White's only real chance here. And so we'll follow that plan of action. And now black plays wisely. He's got activity on the queen side, and he wants to do that because, believe it or not, if all the pawns disappear on the queen side, black still has a tremendous advantage even with that double pawn, simply because there's a lot of things that black can do, and I can't get into them all. Essentially, black could be left with a 4-on-3 majority, but his pawns are advanced, and the middle game and late and early end game can favor black in a lot of positions, and we'll see some of that a little bit as the game unfolds. You'll see some of the reasons. And now black just has this tremendous initiative. This knight is pinned. It's attacked 3 times by the bishop, the queen, and the rook. So it looks like black's going to be winning a pawn here. And white just agrees to give it up. But at least now he has his passed pawn, and of course now black has one too. So white needs to get rid of that pawn on e6 to have a chance. But at the moment too, it's not clear how white's going to progress with this position. He's got to utilize that passed pawn. It has to advance, and right now it's totally blocked. So let's see what happens. Okay, so knight a5 is good. It puts the question to that bishop, and it's preparing to win the a6 pawn, and then white just goes ahead and munches it. Okay, so theoretically you could say, you might look at this and say white's okay. Well, really, white isn't. Black is just much more active. His pieces are coordinated. Okay, let's look at them. The knight on f6 is attacking. It's attacking a pawn on e4. The bishop on a8 is attacking. It's attacking a pawn on e4. The black queen and rook on the open c file are attacking. They're pressuring c2. No, they're not going to take it because it's defended, but each of those pieces is coordinated. Now let's look at white's army. The bishop on f3 is defending. It's defending a pawn. The rook on c1 is defending. It's defending a pawn. At least it's behind the passed pawn, which is a good rule of thumb, but it's still defending. The rook on a1, what's it attacking? It's not attacking anything. It's running into white's own army. And there's no target down at the end of that a file. If it could go anywhere, I'd like to go to a3 so that we can somehow drive the queen away, but we're not close to having that happen yet. The white queen, it's infested the black queen side, but it's on the edge of the board. It's not really attacking anything. And the white knight has done its job. It's helped collect that a pawn, but its sphere of influence is not good. Where's it going to go? How's it get back into play? It can't go to c4, and if it goes to b3, where does it go next? Then it can't go to d2. So black has really got a fine position here. Okay, and now black just takes his pawn because he could. But in a way, white had to do this to take that a pawn. Otherwise, he was just going to get munched. Let's just look back. What else does white do? He pretty much has to give up that c pawn to collect the a pawn. And how else does white defend e4? And you don't want to be defending. White's basically defending everything here. Rook a4 defends it, and then you're threatening queen takes a6 maybe. But then black starts finding good moves. Maybe he plays queen b2, which threatens a rook. So anyway, let's just move on. So black is completely winning now. The c pawn is not close to advancing or creating any kind of play for white, and black's just going to activate everything he has and assault the white king, and white has really no defense. Queen e2 gets the queen back into play and tempos the knight. And black could have even considered f5 in that position, but he didn't have to. Okay, so now white's trying to get the knight into play. Idea is to go to d6 with tempo and then bring it back to e4, and maybe if we can trade it off, we've got some chances. If white can win that e5 pawn, he's got chances to maybe draw and an outside chance to win because he has a passed pawn. But black just starts finding good moves, and now the knight has to go back where it was and find a new way to get back into play. And hey, look, the pawn's advancing, but so is the black knight. Now that knight is a killer piece, and maybe white should have played queen f3, but queen e4 is okay. And except you run into that move now, and like I say, now that just advanced pawns, and this game is really turning fast. It's going to be a long time before white can really make any threat with that pawn. He can get it up maybe a couple more squares, but then it just gets blockaded again, and maybe black will come back and surround it and win it. So rook d1, and now one of the points of f5 is it brings that king rook into play. So every black piece is active, Each one is attacking, and White's doesn't have anything attacking anything. His knight's not attacking anything. Neither of his rooks is attacking anything. His queen isn't attacking anything. But all black's pieces are attacking, so it's just completely winning for black. Okay, this is okay. Maybe we'll get lucky, and if E8 ever opens up, we can come down there and give a mate. If we're lucky, we still have a couple of things stopping it, but you never know. I've won games this way before, and I'm sure you have too, especially in Blitz. And now at least one of the defenders of F8 is gone, so we're close. But now that defender is attacking. It's attacking G3, and White has to weaken his king side. And wow, look at that knight. It's just sunk into the White game, and what can White do? He tries to activate his queen because nothing is active, and wow, pin can't do anything. Now the threat is to take on F2. What's White going to do? Wow, E3 possibility is coming up too. White's really looking for moves here. So he guards it laterally, and black just sinks the queen in a little deeper. He's got new ambitions. He's going to play knight F4 here. Now look at that. Threat is mate on G2. How does White stop that? I don't know how he stops it. I don't think he can stop it. Can you? He give a spy check, but he tries this, but it doesn't matter. It stops the mate on G2, but whoops, there's one on H1. Well, it was a terrific game by black. White had a reasonable game, but the side variation I showed, just by not playing A3 and making black prove he can do something, would be the best choice. You develop, you have your winning chances. If you play cautiously, you have fewer winning chances. And then after that, black just outplayed White. It could have been a completely different outcome had White not played 6A3, but that's chess. You don't win all the time. You don't always play the best move. And still, it was an entertaining game, and congratulations to black. Good job trying by Midas. You did need a win, but you didn't get it. You couldn't play for a draw. So I thank everyone for their time and look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.